Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Hello, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
I realized I have to get away from saying Monday because so many people listen to us throughout the week that it's kind of strange when they're listening Wednesday and it's Monday.
True. Like it releases on Monday, but listen to it whenever.
And
there's some people that have written us saying they've been binging us. So they're listening like all week long to episodes that are like years old, which is awesome.
So we're just going to say hi, preschool peeps.
Hi, everyone.
And welcome to today's topic, which really was derived from an experience that Alison had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to tell my experience?
You can like anonymously tell your experience.
Please tell my experience.
Generically and all that.
Okay. So I was near a playground recently and there were children playing with their teachers, and I didn't hear the beginning of the situation, so I don't know how this came about. But all I know is that there was a child on the top of the slide quite upset about something, and the teacher telling him, well, I don't believe you because you've lied in the past. But I think it was like he was like stuck up there or injured or something because he was really distressed, and she wouldn't help him because he had lied in the past. What led up to that, I have no idea. Like, for all I know, he's been up there for 3 hours saying, I don't know. But I just felt so bad for the child who's not getting the help he needs when he's honestly really stressed out up there and crying and upset and like getting consequences for past actions too. Like, I just felt like there was something here that we can discuss,
And so she texted me and she said, here's what I saw, something about lies. Can we do it? And I said, oh yeah, I don't think we've, in all the 150 something episodes, I don't know that we've ever actually broken down why children lie. So we're going to do that today and give you little tips for handling when they lie, because it really is a normal part of many children's development to test truth and lie. Mm-hmm. So it shouldn't be so shocking in most cases. And surely there's another way to handle it other than, I don't believe you now because you're a liar, which is basically what it is.
Like she totally labeled him as a liar for the rest of his life because it's just, and even if he did lie for the last 15 minutes, like that poor kid, he was like 4 years old.
So, as we do, Alison and I dug into some research and resources that I will get on our website if they aren't on there already. When you are listening to this, I will get them there, I promise. But hopefully I will have had time to do that before this episode releases, but who knows? Life is what it is. Yeah. But it will be there eventually. And what we looked at were two things. One is, why do children lie? And then the other is, what do we do about the different types of lies that children tell? Because there are different reasons and different types and different degrees of severity. Yeah. And when Alison started talking about the topic of lying, I remembered a child who used to be in my class when I was a teacher. And it speaks to the experience I had with her, speaks to one of the reasons why children lie. This child in my class always told tall tales, always spun the biggest stories around real life events in her home or the classroom. And you knew that she was taking the basis of something that really happened and just running with it. And she said things that were sometimes not even plausible for a human being. Sometimes, although sometimes I would sit there when she was telling her tall tales and I would think, could that have happened? That could have happened. and I kind of was never sure. So this was what I used to do with her. I used to look at her when she was done with her tall tale. Children will tell tall tales. And I used to look at her and say to her, wow, now what really happened? And then she would tell me. It was like the most incredible thing. Like she knew she was spinning a whole big story and making something up about what happened in the corner of the classroom and what somebody said to somebody and she's making up this whole thing, but she knew it. She at the time was about 4 years old, totally knew what she was doing. When I would say to her, wow, what really happened? Then she would launch into the actual story without missing a beat, without acknowledging the question, even without laughing, so she really understood what she was doing, which was really making up a story to make it either more exciting, to experiment with reality,
to see what your reaction would be,
to see
to get a reaction out of
right?
it.
These are all reasons why children do things like tell tall tales, where they take something and just make it this big, huge, no way could this have happened, or I don't know, maybe, but it sounds like maybe not story. They experiment with fantasy and reality all the time. That's what their pretend play is. And in fact, sometimes children will make up stories like that because it's what they wish would have happened. A lot of their stories that they tell you, or their perception of reality, is based on wishes rather than facts. Because again, if they're pre-operational learners, we know from Jean Piaget, they have a hard time separating fantasy from reality. And that's between the ages of about 2.5 to about 7 or 8. So in fact, there's an article from raisingchildren.net.au from Australia that talks about that children tell lies from an early age, usually around 3, they start telling stories, and that they lie more between 4 and 6. And that falls all within that pre-operational stage where they're playing with fantasy and reality anyway. So keep in mind, some of the time that they're lying to you, it's because they wish that's what would have happened, because they're experimenting with truth and fantasy, because they are trying to make something sound more exciting.
Yeah.
So those are sort of minor lies.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of life. And we can say to them things like, wow, what really happened? Or
what a great story.
Right. What
like instead of saying, wow, you're lying, you're lying, be like, wow, what a great story. Because honestly, that kid could grow up to be a wonderful screenwriter with all these stories that they have in their head based on one thing that happened in reality. That, that's what screenwriters do. That's what novelists do. That's what they do, so that's a great story, but what really happened? What, like kind of like that. So you want to you don't want to like discourage their imagination, but you don't want them to think it's reality either.
I just thought of it so funny. When you're saying it, that's a great story. I just thought of another student that I had, and he used to tell these stories about, he would come in and talk about, he just loved his father so much. And he would talk about his dad all the time, but he would say things like, my dad is so strong that he can blah, blah, and it was not humanly possible. Or my dad, he would say things about to sort of add to his dad's amazingness in his life.
Yeah.
He did that. And I remember one time looking at him and saying something like, wow, that's a great story you just told. And he was just like, thanks. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think they do know when they're exaggerating the truth, right? I mean, at that age, they know, they're like, I know my dad can't lift a truck, but let me see if she believes it.
You never know.
Yeah.
Sometimes children, even this young, tell lies just to make themselves sound better or more important. These are now we're getting into the areas where we really need to think about, why is the child saying this, and how can I help to reduce the situation that's causing this, or improve another situation? So, if a child is telling you something to make themselves sound more important, having played a more significant role in something, having done something amazing for somebody else that didn't really happen, that they're trying to make themselves more of the center of attention and more important, then we need to do what we do with all children's behavior and think, why is this child seeking this attention? Why does this child need the boost to self-esteem? How can I provide attention and self-esteem in other ways so that this child isn't tempted to cast themselves in this role that isn't reality?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, maybe it's just that they need attention. So give them attention, but in a different, like, not for the lies,
Right.
just in
You
general.
don't want to feed the lie. See, here's the thing. Just like with all behavior, when they're behaving in a way where they're trying to command attention, we don't want to feed the negative behavior, right?
Right.
We don't want hitting, for example, to become the way they get attention. And very similarly, I don't want lying to become the way they get attention. So when we turn to children and we say, now that's a lie, you know, that's not the truth. Let's talk about what you've just done, blah, 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 blah. And we keep going on and on. Well, then we've given them what they need. We've given them the attention for the lie, and it's going to feed more lying.
Yep. Yeah, because negative attention is still attention, and that child wants attention.
Correct.
So
we want to make sure we're not feeding it. We want to keep the conversation about it brief, and we want to make sure not to name call. We shouldn't look at children and say, you are a liar.
Yep.
You know, we shouldn't label them in that way. That's true of this situation and any behavioral situation. So sometimes children lie because they know they did something that adults will be upset about. They need to be in spaces that are psychologically safe for them, that they know if they made a mistake or something happened that the adults might not like, it's going to be okay. You don't have to lie. And in fact, my children knew growing up, and probably many of our listeners' children knew as well, it is going to be far worse for you. The consequences will be far worse for you if you lie than if you just tell me the truth.
Yes.
And I think that every child tests that, or at least that's my experience with my kids.
Sure.
They test that. And that's when I would look at them and say, the consequences of what you do will always be less if you've come to me and told me the truth. But then I, as the adult, have to make that happen. So when they come to me with a truth that is alarming to me or upsetting to me, I have to acknowledge you told me the truth, even though you knew that this wasn't a good situation. So I actually have to affirm it. And I have to say something like, I appreciate that you told me the truth. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about what happens when that action happens.
Yeah. Yeah, because
you told me the truth, I'm not going to take that toy away for a week. I'll take it away for a day.
Yeah. Or it could be one of these, like, if you tell me the truth, we can work together for a solution. But if you lie, then we can't work together, you know, because that was something like my parents were like, if you tell me the truth, you're not going to get in trouble because we can work through that. But if you lie, there's no coming back. You know what I mean? There's no teamwork here. You don't lie to your team members, almost, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, we'll work together and solve the problem if you tell me the truth. But if you lie, there is no solving that problem. Like, your consequences are on you then, you know, and
I think we have to be so careful how we phrase it too.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference in being negative and being positive in our phrasing. So when we look at children and we say, for my children, the magic words of this situation is not good were, I'm disappointed. They didn't like when I said I'm disappointed. As adults, they still wouldn't like if I said to them, I'm disappointed in what you've done, even though they're grown adults. So to look at a child and say, I'm disappointed. I thought you knew you could come to me with the truth, is actually a more emotional statement for many children than the accusations. To say to them, I'm disappointed. I thought you knew that you should come to me with the truth.
Yeah.
And make it I statements like that. This is what I thought you knew.
Yeah.
I thought you realized that the truth is always what you should tell me, because I'm here to help you and protect you and help you think through problems. I used to tell them, I am always on your side, but to be on your side, I have to know the truth.
Right. Because if you are not the safe person that they can come to with the truth, then they are going to hide what's happening because you are not the safe person that they could tell the truth to. So like, if they're telling you the truth and you're still giving them a bunch of consequences for telling the truth, then they're going to be like, well, that wasn't
worth it.
That wasn't worth it. And that's not a
Worth
safe
it.
person I could tell the truth, even though she's, my mother, my teacher, my father, whoever it might be. That's not a safe person I could tell the truth to. So I'm either just going to cover up what's going on or lie my way out of it, because no matter what, there's consequences, So, and you don't want that. You want the children to come to you when something's happening.
Yes, and we want them to do that through their whole lives. This isn't just about today, right? When a young child perceives at a very young age, at the age of 3, 4, or 5, that actually lying to me works out better for them.
Better for me.
They will continue to lie throughout their lives.
Because it worked.
Right.
They'll do what works.
If they understand at 3, 4, and 5 that lying was actually worse for them, then they're more apt to come and tell you the truth, even though there could be consequences as they grow up. And that's really what the message I want a young child to get is: truth will always be better for you. It's not about me. It's about them. And when children start to tell more harmful lies that really could cause harm, that you can see leading down the road to something terrible, much more serious lies than the tall tales or the trying to get attention kind of lies. Although sometimes the attention getting ones can be pretty serious. When they start to tell those lies where you think this is a really big problem, the message still needs to be, life will go much better for you when we are truthful. Right. And sometimes we have to sit and talk to children about truth and lies. And that's a conversation that should take place not just when the chips are down, but also as part of the conversations that we just typically have with children about their social emotional development. So if I'm going to sit in a classroom and I'm going to talk about why we use our talking instead of our hands to get people's attention or to say how upset we are, why we go and get an adult's help instead of pushing somebody. If I'm going to talk to children about their behavior, I also need to include lying in that. I need to have books, social stories, and information for children that I'm sharing with them when no one's lying, just to put the idea in their head that when things happen, we need to tell what really happened. And the word truth can be a very confusing word for young children. That's why with that student I used to look at and say, now tell me what really happened. I didn't say, now you need to tell me the truth, because let's face it, truth to me and truth to you could be two different truths.
Right. And I don't think they really understand what the truth is at this point. Like for all they know, the stuff that you're telling them is not true. Like they might think people in general just tell stories all day long. They might not really know at that age what is real and true and what that means. So, but they do know like what really happened. What did you experience here? They'll know that, but they also know if you start discussing it, like Cindy was saying, like if you're going to discuss like, how do you think that person felt when you hit them? You could also say, how would it feel if mommy lied to daddy? How would daddy feel? You know what I mean?
Well,
like
that brings me to another point. I'd like to make another point based on that. We are always modeling to children. We're always have to be who we want them to be, which means I have to model telling the truth. And here's what that means. Saying to your young children, don't tell daddy that I bought this purse today. Don't tell daddy that don't tell daddy that we bought you these shoes today. Don't tell mommy. Don't tell mommy that I didn't really use the vacuum, or don't tell your grandmother that we stopped for ice cream. She doesn't like when we do that. To say those things to children is to teach them to lie.
To lie. Yes. And that it's okay to lie to get out of situations or to not get in trouble, or, you know what I mean? To avoid confrontation. We just lied, like we don't want a confrontation with grandma. She doesn't like us eating ice cream. So we'll just keep that our little secret. You're teaching them to keep secrets, which not good. You don't want that
I
either.
think there are going to be times when people naturally do that. And I think that we have to be aware.
Think the little white lie happens, right?
The white lie, according to the
White
research,
lie,
but
yeah.
according to the research, a white lie is told to
not hurt
someone else's feelings. And
Yeah.
children don't really start telling white lies until they're adolescents, according to the article that I read. So,
Yeah.
okay, but even modeling that white lie is an issue, as you said. I think that total and absolute truth is hard to come by. And there are movies aren't there movies where we're just going to have a day, the main character has a day where they totally tell the truth to everybody. And
there is
right?
that whole movie where it's impossible for him to lie.
Impossible to lie. And you see how funny it is
so much. Yeah.
We're always skirting around the truth as human beings.
Yeah.
And I think that there are times when children will be exposed to you lying. And here's what comes to mind. You're not supposed to bring candy in a bag or in your pocket into the movie theater. But how many of us as parents were like, I'm bringing the big bag in before you can do that. Or let me wear cargo pants because they have lots of pockets and we can stick a lot of snacks in there. There are a lot of things, the situations like that where people will be like, well, I'm not paying $100 billion for the snacks in there, just stick in my cargo pants pockets, right? Yeah. And I think that just like all things in life, we have to find a more positive balance. So for every package of candy that you've taken and put in a pocket and brought into the movie theater, I'm going to implore you to tell 10 truths for every one of those. For every one of those, 10 truths to a child and 10 demonstrations of I'm going to tell the truth and the chips are going to fall where they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What else did we want to say about the lying thing, Allison? Anything we're looking at? If you see us looking down, we're looking at the research that we did. Please handle when they lie. Please handle it very calmly, because the more upset you get, the more it actually feeds the lying.
Yeah, I think we said we want to talk about helping kids avoid the situations where they would need to lie.
Yes.
So like these lies of like, oh, I see a mess was made in the kitchen, kind of thing. So instead of being like, what happened here? And like, oh, and then the child might say, oh, Johnny did it, when really he did it. And you can go about that and be like, oh, I see a mess was made. Let's work together to clean it up. And then you just avoided this whole, like, there is no lie to cover up the situation. Be like, no, we'll just work together. We'll just clean this up. You know what I mean? You just avoided that whole thing. So, what was the other thing we wanted to talk about?
I don't know, but we're going to post these articles if people want more information. We'll post some articles on the website so that you can check it out. I think the important thing to maybe end this episode with is just the notion that children experimenting with truth, children telling lies to accomplish things like getting attention or trying to draw attention in a certain direction, children not understanding that the truth is always better than a lie is really a part of normal development. So rest assured that the children are not liars. The children are children. They're doing what young children do.
Yeah.
And they're developing in the ways that young children develop. And the key to it all is how we deal with it as adults. What do we do? And whenever we're talking to children about their behavior, we should be calm and kind and compassionate and be teachers. I need to teach you something. Yeah. Even if it's like, I need to teach you that the truth is always going to be better for you.
Right.
Than a lie. Or at least almost always. Maybe not when you're going into the movies. I don't know. But
I don't know.
Nearly almost always with human interaction. Yeah. And I'd like you all to keep this in mind too as we sign this off. Adults often look at children and think, wow, this kid lies all the time. So do grown-ups.
Yeah, so do grown-ups. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do adults. Yeah. And with that, we're going to sign off of this episode. And thank you for bringing our preschool peeps. If you have any other stories or tips or hints or ideas having to do with children lying, please contact us. Yeah. howpreschoolteachersdoit.com, How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast on Facebook. And if it's okay for us to share on the air on the podcast, please give us permission in writing out loud so that we know.
Yeah, so we know, because we don't want to share things that you don't want shared, you know.
Correct.
And
And I do
and we'd
believe
love
we have
to,
something to share for our next episode.
our next
just
episode, we
getting
do
it
have
ready.
one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, folks.
right.
We will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.
Bye.